A green light blinked 12 times on the drop pod ceiling, and then the floor opened under Daniel Brooks. He fell through warm air, hit a soft patch of moss, and rolled twice before standing up. Around him, the forest was thick with tall blue trees and yellow sunlight cut into long stripes. He could already hear the others. Far to the east, something heavy was being dragged. To the north, a metal saw was screaming through wood. Somewhere to the west, a plasma forge had started its low, angry hum. Daniel did not move toward any of those sounds. He stood still and just listened. The Galactic Academy's survival trial had begun. 12 species, 40 cadets, one wild planet called Vesh 3. The rule was simple. Build a weapon. Survive 30 days. Complete 3 field objectives. The cadet with the highest score would earn a permanent seat at the Academy. Daniel was the only human in the whole trial. He pulled out the small bag the Academy had allowed each cadet to carry. Inside his bag, there was a folded knife, a thin spool of strong cord, a fire striker, a small water filter, and 1 ration bar. That was all. No metal, no power cell, no tools. Other cadets had begged the Academy for extra parts, and many had won the right to bring small kits of wires and chips. Daniel had asked for nothing. He smiled at his little bag, closed it, and started walking. High above the planet, in a quiet observation room, the alien instructors watched their screens. Officer Sala, a tall reptile-like woman with silver eyes, tapped her claw on the table. "The human is walking away from the drop site," she said. "He has not even started a fire." A small furry instructor next to her side. "Mark him. Likely to fail within the first week." Sala nodded and made the mark on Daniel's file. On the ground, Daniel walked for almost 2 hours. He was not lost. He was looking. He passed loud cadets who were already cutting trees with humming blades. He passed a tall, fur-armed cadet who was welding a metal frame for a battle drone. He passed a group of 3 insect cadets who were building a forge from black stones. None of them looked at him. They were too busy with their machines. Daniel kept moving until the noise faded behind him. He found what he wanted near a slow, clean stream. A young yew-like tree stood at the edge of the water. Its trunk was thin, smooth, and slightly curved. Daniel touched the bark with his palm. It was cool and firm. He pressed it slowly. The wood bent a little, then sprang back with a soft snap. "Good," he whispered. "You will do." He sat down, opened his knife, and started to work. He did not rush. He cut slow, clean lines into the trunk. He listened to the wood as he carved. When the trunk felt right, he removed a long, straight piece from the heart of the tree. He shaped it gently, scraping off thin curls of wood. He checked the bend over and over. Every time he changed something small, he tested the curve again. The sun went down. Daniel kept working by the light of a small fire he had built from dry leaves and a few thin sticks. The fire was tiny, almost invisible, and it made no smoke. He had placed it inside a ring of stones, so the light could not be seen from far away. In the sky, the instructors were watching 3 other feeds. A loud forge had exploded. A drone had fallen from a tree and broken its arm. 2 cadets were already fighting over a piece of metal. Nobody was watching Daniel. Nobody saw him finish the first half of a bow at midnight. The next morning, he woke with the birds. He drank from the stream, ate a small piece of his ration bar, and started again. Today he carved the arrows. He chose 6 straight branches, peeled them, and shaped them with patience. He hardened the tips in his small fire until the wood turned black and smooth. For feathers, he found long, soft plants near the water and tied small bunches at the back of each arrow with his cord. For the bowstring, he needed something stronger than plant fiber. He waited near the stream until a small deer-like animal came to drink. He did not move. He did not breathe loudly. When the animal lowered its head, Daniel threw a small stone with perfect aim. The animal fell quickly and felt no pain. Daniel thanked it softly, the way his grandfather had taught him long ago in the woods of Earth. He took only what he needed: meat for food, sinew for the bowstring. He cleaned the rest and buried it under stones. By the end of the second day, Daniel Brooks had a finished bow. It was simple. It was wooden. It was quiet. He pulled the string back slowly. The bow bent like a smile. He let one arrow fly toward a fallen log 30 steps away. The arrow hit the center with a soft thud. Daniel smiled. In the observation room, a young instructor finally noticed his feed. He leaned forward. "Wait," he said. "Is that a stick?" The other instructors looked. Some laughed. A wooden stick from a museum, one of them joked. Officer Sala did not laugh. She watched the human pick up his arrow, check the tip, and slide it back into a small bag on his belt. She watched him sit by his fire, calm and quiet, while other cadets on other screens were already shouting at each other. She did not say anything. But slowly, very slowly, she reached forward and removed the likely to fail mark from Daniel's file. Rain woke the forest on the fourth day. It came down soft and steady, tapping on the wide blue leaves above Daniel Brooks. He opened his eyes inside the small shelter he had built 2 nights before. The roof was made of bark strips, layered like fish scales, tied tight with cord and thin vines. Not one drop of water came through. He stretched, listened to the rain, and smiled. Far away, across the valley, the sounds were very different. Daniel could hear them even through the falling rain. Sparks were popping. A drone was buzzing in short, broken bursts, like a sick insect. Someone was shouting in a language the translator chip in Daniel's ear did not bother to translate. A heavy crash followed. Then more shouting. Daniel stepped out of his shelter, picked up his bow, and started his morning slowly. He drank from a clean rain pool. He checked his snares. 2 small ground birds were caught in the loops near the stream. He thanked them quietly, cleaned them, and tied them to his belt. He checked the fire pit. The stones were still warm under the ash. He fed the coals with dry twigs from inside his shelter and built a small flame again. By the time the rain stopped, he was eating warm roasted bird with wild green leaves. Up in the observation room, Officer Sala sipped from a steaming cup. Her silver eyes were locked on Daniel's screen. 3 other instructors had moved their chairs closer to her station. They did not say anything anymore. They just watched. A 4-armed cadet named Broke had spent the morning trying to recharge his plasma rifle. His power cell was empty. The trees on Vesh 3 blocked most of the solar light, and the small portable charger he had built was broken. He kicked the charger, swore loudly, and threw his rifle into the mud. A pair of insect cadets had built a beautiful forge from black stone. But their forge needed constant fuel, and the wet wood from the rain would not burn hot enough. Their metal sheets were half-formed and useless. A cadet named Velka, tall and 4-eyed, had built a tracking drone. The drone had flown for 10 minutes, then crashed into a tree during the rain and now lay broken on the forest floor. Everyone was struggling. Everyone except the human. Daniel finished his food, cleaned his knife, and walked to the edge of the stream. He pulled out his bow and 1 arrow. He stood very still. He had been watching the water for 2 days. He knew where the fish liked to swim. A silver shape moved under the surface. Daniel drew the bow back slowly. He breathed out. He let the arrow fly. The arrow cut through the water and struck the fish through the middle. He pulled the line attached to the arrow, and the fish came up to him. He thanked it, the same way he thanked the bird, and added it to his food bag. In the sky room, the young instructor who had once called the bow a stick from a museum leaned back in his chair. How is he doing this? He asked. He has no tech, no scanner, no power. Officer Sala answered without looking at him. He has eyes, he has patience, and he has hands that listen. The young instructor frowned. Hands that listen? Sala finally turned to him. Humans build tools that match the world around them. Most species build tools that try to defeat the world. There is a very big difference. Down in the forest, Daniel walked deeper into the woods that afternoon. He wanted to learn the land better. He moved with soft steps, the way his grandfather had taught him. Heel first on soft ground. Toe first on dry leaves. Never break a twig if you can avoid it. Never let your shadow fall on what you are watching. He found animal trails. Wide ones for large beasts. Narrow ones for small ones. He found a salt patch where many animals came to lick the ground. He marked it in his mind. He found a place where the wind always moved in one direction. He marked that too. He climbed a tall tree and looked across the forest. From up there, he could see thin lines of smoke rising from many cadet camps. Some of the camps were close together. Some were far apart. He saw one camp where a fire had spread out of control and the cadets were beating it with branches. He saw another where 2 cadets were arguing while their drone lay broken between them. Daniel did not feel proud. He only felt quiet. He climbed down, walked back to his own camp, and worked on his arrows again. He made 6 more. He hardened the tips. He tested each one against a soft log. He fixed the ones that flew crooked. He sharpened his knife on a flat river stone. That night, he sat by his small fire and watched the stars come out between the clouds. Vesh 3 had 3 moons. 2 were small and white. 1 was large and a soft, dusty red. The red one was just rising over the trees when Daniel heard something new. A low, rolling sound. Almost a growl, but deeper. It came from far to the north. Daniel did not move. He listened. The sound came again. Closer this time. In the sky room, alarms began to blink on 3 screens. The instructors looked at each other. Officer Sala pressed a button to pull up the planet's wildlife report. She read one line, and her face changed. "A Corlin beast is in the trial zone," she said quietly. The young instructor went pale. "Those things kill armed soldiers. The cadets cannot handle that." Sala did not answer. She looked back at Daniel's screen. Down in the forest, Daniel listened to the growl, picked up his bow, and slowly stood up. Screams cut through the morning. They came from the south side of the valley, sharp and fast. Then a plasma blast. Then another. Then silence. Then more screaming. Daniel Brooks lowered the wild apple he had been about to bite, set it down on a flat stone, and stood up straight. It was day 10 of the trial. The Corlin beast had found the cadets. He had heard the low growl every night for 2 days now. He had seen the broken trees near the north ridge where the beast had walked. He had seen its footprints in the mud, each one wider than his own chest. He had also seen the marks on the trees where the beast had sharpened its claws. The marks were higher than his head. This was no animal he could fight from the ground. Daniel grabbed his bow, his quiver of arrows, and a small bag of dried meat. He kicked dirt over his fire until no smoke rose. Then he started moving toward the screams. Not fast, not slow, just steady. In the sky room, every instructor was now watching live feeds. A cadet named Broke, the 4-armed one, had fired 3 plasma shots into the beast at point-blank range. The bolts had bounced off the thick hide. The beast had thrown him into a tree and broken 2 of his arms. He was now crawling away, leaving a thin trail of blue blood. Another cadet, the 4-eyed Velka, had tried to climb a tree. The beast had simply pushed the tree over. Velka had jumped to another tree, then another, and was now trapped on a thin branch with the beast circling below. 3 more cadets were in the open clearing, firing every weapon they had. None of it was working. The plasma rifles burned the air. The drones tried to hover above the beast, but the beast was too fast and too smart. It had already crushed 1 drone in its jaws. Officer Sala was on her feet. "Send the rescue ships," she said. "Ships are 6 minutes out," the young instructor answered. His hands were shaking. "They have 1 minute," Sala said. "Maybe less." Down in the forest, Daniel reached the edge of the clearing. He did not run in. He stopped behind a thick blue tree and watched. He counted the cadets. He counted the beast's steps. He looked at the wind. The wind was blowing toward him, away from the beast. Good. The beast could not smell him. He looked at the trees around the clearing. He picked the tallest one with the thickest leaves. He climbed it without a sound, hand over hand, foot finding every branch by memory. The cadets in the clearing did not see him. The beast did not see him. Even the watching instructors did not see him for a moment, until one of them said, "Where did the human go?" "He is in the tree," Sala whispered. "Look." The cameras zoomed in. Daniel was sitting on a high branch, his back against the trunk, his bow resting on his knee. He was completely still. He was just watching. The beast was big, easily the size of a small house. Its hide was dark gray, thick like armor, covered in short black spikes. Its head was wide, with 2 heavy jaws and small yellow eyes. Its ears were long and pointed, and they twitched at every sound. Plasma fire bounced off its sides like sparks off a stone. But Daniel was not looking at the hide. He was looking at the soft spots. Behind the ear, the thin skin under the jaw, the corner of the eye, the soft place where the neck met the shoulder. He had been watching this beast in his mind for 2 days, even before he had ever seen it. Every animal had soft spots. His grandfather had taught him that. The bigger the animal, the harder to find them. But they were always there. The beast turned. Broke was crawling slowly, trying to escape. The beast lowered its head and began to walk toward him. Its huge claws sank into the mud. Broke was bleeding. He would not make it. Daniel reached behind him and pulled out 1 arrow. He checked the tip. He set it on the bowstring. He waited. The beast walked closer to his tree. Its ears twitched. It heard the plasma rifles. It heard the drones. It heard Broca's heavy breath. It did not hear Daniel. Daniel made no sound. He was not metal. He was not electricity. He was just a man with a wooden stick, sitting in a tree. The beast passed under his branch. Daniel drew the bow back. Slow. Steady. He breathed out. The arrow flew. It was so quiet that even the cameras almost missed it. It cut through the air with a soft hiss and struck the beast exactly behind the ear, in the small patch of soft skin Daniel had been studying. The beast stopped. Its head shook once. Its huge body went still. Then, slowly, like a tower falling, it dropped to the ground. The earth shook. Leaves rained down. The forest went silent. In the clearing, the cadets did not understand what had happened. Broke was still crawling. Velka was still in the tree. The drones were still flying in confused circles. No one had heard the arrow. In the sky room, no one breathed for almost 10 seconds. Then Officer Sala sat down slowly in her chair. He killed it, the young instructor whispered. With a stick. He killed a Corland beast with a stick. Sala did not answer at first. She just stared at the screen where Daniel was already climbing down from the tree, calm as ever, walking toward Broke to check if he was alive. No, she said finally. Not with a stick. With patience. We have been teaching the wrong lesson all these years. The room stayed quiet. Down in the clearing, Daniel knelt beside Broke and pressed a clean cloth to his wound. News travels faster than light when the news is strange enough. By the next morning, every cadet on Vesh 3 knew the story. The human, the wooden bow, the dead Corland beast. Some did not believe it. Some watched the recording 6 times. Some watched it 10 times. A few young cadets in the southern camps tried to copy his bow that same day, using twisted metal pipes and shouting at each other when the strings snapped. In the camps near the rivers, the talk was louder. He used a stick. A stick. He sat in a tree for 3 hours. 3 hours. Who does that? He did not even shout when the beast fell. He just walked over and helped the wounded one. Some cadets laughed. They called Daniel lucky. They said the beast must have been sick. They said any cadet with a real weapon would have done the same in a second. But some cadets did not laugh. One of them was a young avian cadet named Thierry. Thierry was small, with soft blue feathers, long wings, and bright orange eyes. She came from a cold cliff world far away, where her people lived in wind-blown caves and built nothing larger than they could carry. Her trial weapon was a small wing glove with 3 thin blades. She had built it well, but she was not winning. The other cadets had bigger tools. She had been thinking about giving up. She had watched the Corland beast feed 47 times. On the morning of day 12, she flew across the valley, found the smoke of Daniel's small fire, and landed near his camp. Daniel was sitting cross-legged on a flat stone, sharpening an arrow tip on a piece of river rock. He did not jump when she landed. He looked up calmly, nodded, and went back to his work. You are the human, Thierry said. Daniel, he answered. Thierry. He nodded again. Sit. The fire is warm. She folded her wings carefully and sat near the fire. She watched him for a long time before she finally asked the question. How did you do it? Daniel did not answer right away. He finished sharpening the arrow, set it down, and looked at her. I did not do anything special, he said. I just listened. Listened to what? The forest, the wind, the beast. Thierry tilted her head. Her people did this when they were thinking. Listen to the beast. For 2 days, Daniel said. Before I ever saw it, I knew where it walked. I knew when it slept. I knew which way it turned its head. I knew the wind around its body. I knew the soft places on its skin. How? He smiled a little. Footprints. Broken branches. Smell. Sound. The way the small animals went silent when it was near, and the way they came back when it left. Thierry was quiet for a while. Then she pointed at the bough leaning against a tree. And that? This is older than my whole planet's space program, Daniel said softly. My grandfather taught me. His grandfather taught him. Long before metal monsters, my people hunted with this. We learned the world first. We made the tools second. Thierry thought about that. On her own world, her people also made simple things. They wove ropes from wing feathers. They carved hooks from bone. They did not have big machines. They had small, smart hands. She had been ashamed of those things when she came to the academy. She did not feel ashamed now. Will you teach me? She asked. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. He spent the rest of the day showing her how to make a snare. He used only the cord from his bag, a small bent stick, and a piece of softwood. He set the loop near a small animal trail. He covered it with leaves. He explained how the animal would step through the loop and the bent stick would snap up. He did not say it would always work. He said sometimes it took 2 days, sometimes 3, sometimes the animals went around it. That was fine. The forest was not in a hurry, so he was not in a hurry. Tiri stayed for 1 full night. She slept inside his shelter. She ate his roasted fish. In the morning, she helped him gather wood. Before she left, Daniel gave her one of his arrows, just one, with the wooden tip and the soft feather binding. "For your wall," he said, "when you go home." Tiri took it carefully in her thin fingers. She looked at it the way most cadets looked at a medal. "Thank you, Daniel of Earth," she said. Then she opened her wings and flew away. In the sky room, Officer Sala had been watching the whole conversation. She did not blink for almost the entire visit. When Tiri flew away, Sala finally leaned back in her chair and let out a long, slow breath. The young instructor next to her was writing notes very fast. "He is teaching her," he said. "He is teaching a rival. Why? Tiri's score will go up. His own score might go down." "Yes," Sala said. "That makes no sense." Sala turned her silver eyes to him. "It makes sense if you remember what humans are." "What are they?" She thought for a moment. "They are a species that survives by sharing. Most species think strength is the answer. Humans know that strength alone dies alone. They survive by making others stronger too. They have always done it. On their own world. In their own history. Now here on ours." She turned back to the screen and opened her log. She typed one private note that she did not show anyone. "The human is not just surviving the trial. He is teaching it. We must watch every single thing he does. We may have to change everything we believe about strength." Then she closed the log. The sky outside grew darker. Far above the planet, an old storm system began to turn slowly toward Vesh 3. The sky cracked open on day 22. It did not crack with thunder. It cracked with light. A pale green wave rolled across the clouds, bright as broken glass, and behind it came a deep silence that pressed down on the forest like a hand. Birds stopped singing. Insects stopped clicking. Even the wind paused, as if it was afraid. Daniel Brooks looked up at the sky and knew at once. Ion storm. His grandfather had never seen one, but his academy training had. Every cadet had studied them. An ion storm carried strange particles that ate through power cells, fried circuits, and silenced every electronic weapon within 100 kilometers. Plasma rifles became metal sticks. Drones became dead birds. Communicators became smooth black stones. Daniel did not own any of those things. He owned a bow. He owned a knife. He owned a small fire pit and a snare line and a shelter built from bark. The storm did not care about any of those. He moved quickly but calmly. He pulled all his dry firewood deeper into the shelter. He covered his fire pit with a flat stone to keep the coals alive. He checked his arrows and his food bag. He tied the shelter roof tighter with extra cord. Then he sat at the entrance and watched. The first wave hit. In the camps across the valley, screams began. Plasma rifles sparked once and went dead. Drones fell from the sky like wet leaves. The big metal walker that broke had built fell on its side and could not get up. The insect cadet's beautiful forge cracked from the strange cold the storm had brought. Light strips went black. Tents that ran on heaters turned cold in minutes. Cadets who had relied on electronic maps suddenly had no idea where their friends were. The rain came next. Heavy, freezing, sideways rain. In the sky room, the instructors had lost contact with 31 of the 40 cadets. Only Daniel's feed was still working, because his camera was a small, old-style optical chip with no power needs, just a button battery the size of a coin. Officer Sala stood with her hands flat on the table. "Send the recall signal," she said. "The signal will not pass through the storm," the young instructor answered. His face was pale. "We have lost them. We cannot reach them. We cannot rescue them until the storm clears. That is at least 18 hours. How many will live 18 hours in this?" The young instructor did not answer. Sala looked at Daniel's screen. Daniel had stood up. He was putting on his bag. He was tying his knife to his belt. He was picking up his bow. He was leaving his shelter. "Where is he going?" the young instructor asked. Sala watched. "He is going to them. But the trial is still active. If he stays in his shelter, his survival score is perfect. He wins. He has the best score of any cadet on the planet right now." Yes, Sala said softly. And he is leaving anyway. Down in the forest, Daniel pushed through the wind. The rain hit his face like cold needles. The green light from the sky made everything look strange and silver. He walked toward the loudest of the failing camps, the one where the insect cadets had built the forge. He had marked it in his mind on day 8. He remembered every path. He found them quickly, 3 of them, soaked and shivering, huddled under the broken metal of their own fallen tower. Their shells were turning gray from the cold. One of them was barely moving. Daniel did not waste time talking. He pulled them out one by one. He half-carried, half-dragged them to a thick rock overhang he had passed 2 weeks ago. He started a small fire with his striker, using the dry wood he had brought folded inside his jacket. He took off his own outer coat and wrapped it around the weakest cadet. Then he went back into the storm. He found Broke next, lying near his broken walker, half frozen but still breathing. Daniel helped him stand. Broke, who had once laughed at the wooden stick, now leaned on Daniel's shoulder and let himself be guided to the overhang fire. Daniel went out 3 more times. He found Velka in a half-fallen tree. He found 2 small ground walker cadets lost behind a curtain of rain. He found Tiri last, huddled inside a hollow log, her feathers wet and her body shaking. She lifted her head when she saw him and tried to smile through her chattering beak. By the time the storm reached its worst hour, Daniel had 8 other cadets sitting under the overhang. The fire was small but warm. He passed around dried meat from his bag, slowly, a piece at a time. He showed Tiri how to set a quick snare just outside the overhang, because the fire would attract small animals looking for warmth. He showed the insect cadets how to press their cold shells close to the heated stones near the fire. Nobody talked much. Nobody had the strength. But Broke, halfway through the long night, turned his big head toward Daniel and spoke through cracked lips. "Why?" he asked. "Your score. The trial. You could have stayed in your shelter and won." Daniel was feeding the fire. He did not look up. "Score is paper," he said. "You are not paper." Broke stared at him for a long time. Then he closed his eyes and slept. In the sky room, no one had said a word for almost 20 minutes. The young instructor finally whispered, "He is helping his rivals." Officer Sala nodded slowly. Her silver eyes were wet, and she did not try to hide it. "Yes," she said. "That is the strength humans never tell us about. They do not write it in their letters. They do not say it in their speeches. They just do it, quietly, when the storm comes." Outside, the wind began to slow. Inside the overhang, 9 cadets breathed warm air around one small human fire. Sunlight returned to Vesh 3 like a quiet apology. Day 30 came soft and golden. The clouds had moved on. The wind was warm again. The blue trees stood tall, dripping with the last memory of the storm. Small birds came back to the branches and started singing as if nothing had ever happened. The forest forgave easily. The forest always did. Daniel Brooks walked out of the trees at the edge of the central landing field with 8 other cadets behind him. He was tired. His coat was torn. His bow was strapped across his back, scratched but still strong. His hair was a mess. There was a small cut on his cheek from a sharp branch the night before, and his boots were thick with dried mud. He looked nothing like a winner from a glossy academy poster. But behind him walked Tiri, her wings folded, her step steady. Behind her came Broke, leaning on a wooden crutch Daniel had carved for him. Behind him came Velka and the 3 insect cadets and 2 small ground walkers. All of them were alive. All of them were walking on their own feet. The recall ships had landed 2 hours ago. Other cadets were already inside, getting medical checks and warm food. Most were silent. Many had failed the trial. A few were crying. Daniel and his group walked across the field slowly. The other cadets watched them through the open ship doors. No one spoke. No one needed to. Officer Sala was waiting at the edge of the field. She stood very straight. Her silver eyes followed Daniel from the moment he stepped out of the trees. When he reached her, she did not salute. She did not bow. She simply held out her hand, in the human way, because she had been practicing this small gesture for the last week without telling anyone. Daniel looked at her hand, then at her face. Then he smiled and shook it. "Cadet Brooks," she said. "Officer Sala," he answered. That was all they said. The cameras caught the moment from 3 angles. It would later be played in lecture halls across the galaxy for 100 years. That night, the Academy Council met behind closed doors. There were 12 of them, old instructors, Senior officers. Two retired commanders from worlds that had not sent cadets in years. They watched every recording, every shelter, every fire, every snare, every arrow, every rescue. They watched Daniel teach Thierry. They watched him carry Broke through the storm. They watched him give away his last dried meat to the youngest cadet without saying a word. They watched it all in silence. When the last recording ended, an old reptile commander named Varith leaned forward and spoke first. For 300 years, he said slowly, we have measured our cadets by the strength of their weapons. We have asked, who builds the biggest gun? Who pilots the fastest drone? Who breaks the hardest stone? He paused. We have been asking the wrong question. Another commander, a tall plant being with soft green skin, nodded. The question is not who survives alone. The question is who keeps the others alive. A third commander, a small four-eyed scholar from the council's far seat, tapped her finger on the table. The human did not just survive. He raised the survival rate of his entire region from 20% to 100%. By himself. With no power. Officer Sala, sitting at the side of the room, finally spoke. He did it with a bow, she said. But the bow is not the lesson. The bow is just the tool. The lesson is what the bow needed. Patience. Listening. The willingness to give your fire to someone who is colder than you. The room was quiet for a long time. Then Commander Varith stood up. From this day, he said, the survival trial of the Galactic Academy will no longer measure who builds the strongest weapon. It will measure who keeps the most cadets alive. We will teach old tools again. We will teach quiet tools. We will teach the things our species forgot when we became too proud of our machines. He turned to Officer Sala. Make the announcement in the morning. The next day, every cadet on Vesh 3 was called to the central hall. Daniel stood near the back with his small bag and his bow. He did not want a stage. He did not want a speech. But when Officer Sala finished the announcement, the entire hall turned toward him. Thierry walked up to him first. She placed a single soft feather in his hand. From my wing, she said. From my home cliffs. Thank you, Daniel of Earth. Broke came next. He had no gift. He just placed one of his 4 big hands on Daniel's shoulder, looked down at him with serious eyes, and said 2 simple words. My brother. Then Broke walked away before anyone could see the water in his eyes. The insect cadets came next. They had built him a small forge marker, melted in the night from the metal of their own broken forge. It was shaped like a flame. Velka came last, and just bowed deeply. That evening, the Academy placed Daniel's bow in the main hall, under a soft golden light. They built a small case of clear stone around it. They added a plaque beside it in 12 languages. The human translation read, the quiet weapon that taught a galaxy how to listen. Daniel did not stay for the ceremony. He never liked ceremonies. He took his bag, walked to the small Earth ship at the edge of the field, and looked back one last time at the forest of Vesh 3. The wind was soft. The trees were waving slowly. Somewhere in the distance, a small bird was teaching its young one how to sing. Daniel smiled. Officer Sala stood at the edge of the field and watched him go. The young instructor stood beside her. He never even thanked us, the young instructor said. No, Sala answered softly. We came to test the humans. The humans taught us instead. That is the thanks we deserve, and more than we deserve. The Earth ship lifted off into the orange evening sky. In the main hall, the wooden bow rested quietly under its soft golden light, and somewhere in the galaxy, the lesson began to spread.